When you look at the Seattle Seahawks, you know you're talking about one of the best franchises currently in the National Football League. You know you're looking at a team that is in the mix year in and year out. When you talk about the playoff picture in the NFC, the Seahawks are somehow a factor and they're somebody to be reckoned with. And they're still kind of like a quasi measuring stick for everybody else in the NFC. If you want to get to that next level, you must beat Seattle. It just seems to be the way it plays out. So you look at the Seahawks team, knowing that you've got a franchise quarterback in Russell Wilson, excuse me, that you've got still an elite defense, one of the best in the National Football League, with guys like Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill and Bobby Wagner, Richard Sherman, and the rest of the Legion of Boom secondary. You're talking about a team that you always feel like can be right in the mix and contend for a championship. But you also get that feeling, too, watching this Seahawks team, that this defense is getting older. They haven't adequately replaced beast mode Marshawn Lynch. That while they're still in the mix and they're still relevant and they could still win one at any time, you feel like that window of opportunity is dramatically closing on this organization. And at some point, even though it's not now, at some point in time, the bottom could fall out just a little bit because that seems to just be the natural order of things. So it's not surprising to see the Seahawks, take an approach where the future doesn't matter as much. It's about the here and now. That's why they seem to be so willing to trade out of the first round every single year, because they're not as worried about that first round pick. They're trying to save some cap space. They're worried about getting additional picks maybe for depth purposes, getting those kind of diamonds in the rough that they built this team around, guys like the Richard Shermans and the Cam Chancellors of the world that you can get in the fifth round and make studs out of. But you look at this team, it's not surprising to see them go after a guy like a Sheldon Richardson. He comes available. One weakness this organization has had for years is the ability to generate a pass rush up the middle, which usually would come primarily, if not solely, from flipping Michael Bennett inside on passing downs. And it works, and Michael Bennett's a stud, but it'd be nice to have a more natural defensive tackle that you could play as a defensive tackle that could generate some one-gap pressure as a defensive tackle. And Sheldon Richardson is the type of guy that should be able to do that for the Seahawks defense. And when you look at what the Seahawks had to give up, Jermaine Kearse in a second-round pick, big fucking flip, who cares? Because if you're the Seahawks, you gamble on Richardson now, you figure out maybe whether he's a long-term option for you or not, but right now, it's all about 2017. And Sheldon Richardson, unless he gets in his own way again and wants to continue to be a moron again, will help this defense. And if anything, this is a perfect type of situation for Sheldon Richardson because he's going into a locker room with guys like Michael Bennett, guys like Richard Sherman, guys like Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas. They're better than you. You're just a cog in the wheel. They're not going to put up with that shit. They will destroy your ass if you try to come in and destroy that locker room. It's that simple. So if anything, it takes the pressure off of Sheldon Richardson. He gets away from the toxic environment of the Jets, and he can come in and just be a guy. Be a really good guy, but still be a guy nonetheless. And bring something different to this defense. With that said, and as much as I applaud the Seahawks for taking advantage of opportunities staring them in the face and making a necessary, decent move, is Sheldon Richardson going to play offensive tackle for you? Is Sheldon Richardson going to block for Russell Wilson? Is he going to carry the football for you on a consistent basis like a Marshawn Lynch? So on the one hand, it seems kind of cool to add more strength to the strength of your team. I might rather spend a little bit more of my resources if I'm going to do something like this to try and improve the offense and balance out the team a little bit more, and more importantly, improve my run blocking, and especially more importantly, improve my pass protection in front of Russell Wilson. Because that's a big hindrance to what the Seahawks team does, is that their offensive line absolutely stinks. And while they've had to invest so much of their resources in terms of the salary cap in recent years in the defense and on Russell Wilson and other guys like Jimmy Graham and now Doug Baldwin and so forth, the offensive line has kind of suffered a little bit. The offensive line is just not good enough. And while the Sheldon Richardson trade is great, it still doesn't address your biggest deficiencies. And I don't know if bringing in guys like Luke Jokel and Ode Ibushi to play guard for you is going to get the job done. Now, Luke Jokel is the type of guy former number 2 overall pick who busted out at tackle for the Jaguars. You bring in, maybe change of scenery, better organization, better environment. Maybe he's a guy with a new position at left guard. He could come in and at least equate himself to being a starting caliber left guard at the NFL level. It is possible. How likely remains to be seen. But I would rather see them bring in a Sheldon Richardson type of guy to make that type of impact on the offensive line as opposed to the defensive line. But that's just me. Because you know that they're not going to get a whole lot of impact out of the draft this year. When you look at their draft class, Ethan Posich, Shaquille Griffin, Delano Hill, however you say it, Tedrick Thompson, Amaric Darbo, Darbo, Hill, Thompson. These are all nice prospects, but they're not guys that you would figure are going to make a whole lot of contributions immediately for the Seahawks. Posich might be able to. I expect Shaq Griffin to probably have the most immediate impact on this team. But again, drafting a lot of depth and a lot of backups. And for the Seahawks, while it's understandable from a salary cap standpoint why they've de-emphasized the first-round pick so much in recent years, at some point in time, you need those guys to replenish your team to keep yourself at that level. This is still a really good team, but they could maybe have used an extra first-round pick or two that would have really helped put them over the hump, especially when you've traded them away in recent years for guys like Percy Harvin. Did that really work out, honestly? Jimmy Graham, again, one of those situations where Graham comes available, you got to make the move if you're the Seahawks. And at least in 2016, you could say they better figured out how to utilize Jimmy Graham. Hey, let's not make him an inline blocker. Let's let Jimmy Graham be Jimmy Graham. And he had a remarkable comeback from his patella tendon injury. It was impressive to see. You look at this roster, though. A lot of good in a lot of places. Russell Wilson's a franchise quarterback. You wonder sometimes if he's knocking on the door of being elite. Then you look at the skill players on offense, Doug Baldwin, Jimmy Graham. You have 2 more than capable pass catchers that could do quite a bit of damage for Russell Wilson in that Seahawks passing game. Then you look on the defensive side of the ball. That defensive front is top-notch. You're talking about a team that had Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill, Frank Clark had a really good year last year. He had over 10 sacks. Now you add a Sheldon Richardson into the mix. Another year of Jerron Reed at the NFL level. He's probably going to be your interior run stuff around early downs. A defensive front is tough. And you look at the linebacking core. You still got Bobby Wagner. You still got KJ Wright. You're in a good place there. I have some concerns about who's going to really be able to fill in. Is it really going to be Michael Wilhite to play that old kind of Bruce Irvin role in this defense? That might be one guy that they're missing, but bringing in a guy like Sheldon Richardson, it might not just be that important. And you still have the Legion of Boom. You still have Richard Sherman. You still have Earl Thomas. You still have Cam Chancellor. And that in and of itself is going to help you win quite a few football games. But the problems that this team has had, and they had in 2016, I still see that they have now. I still have significant concerns about the offensive line. Who are their tackles? Do you really think if Ifedi is going to hold up at one of the tackle positions? Who's the guy playing left tackle? I'm not trying to be a smartass. I legitimately can't remember. Is Luke Choco going to be a savior of your offensive line on the interior? Ooh. Then your running game. Where you've got Eddie Lacy, who was only motivated to drop some weight because of contract escalators that were put in, bonuses that were put in. Thomas Rawls, CJ Prosise. Is one guy, a combination of these guys, or any of these guys going to be able to do anything to help balance out the Seahawks offense and give them some of that identity as a run-first team that they used to have when they were at their best? And then on the defensive side of the ball, you still have to be a little concerned about the secondary depth. I have been for a couple of years now. At corner, once you get past Richard Sherman, to me, there's not a whole lot there, and they could be beaten there. And at safety, once you got past Chancellor and Thomas, and you're in those nickel-dime 7 defensive back formations, the Seahawks secondary is vulnerable. They are beatable. And maybe that's just the nature of the beast of having so many highly paid guys and highly paid stars on the defensive side of the ball. But that could also be a failure to, in recent years, be able to identify guys that could come in and play in those type of roles. I think Shaq Griffin can help, but still a big question. And in terms of players to watch on this team, I look at the offense. I look at Eddie Lacy. Is he going to be that Marshawn Lynch light type of guy that this offense needs him to be? I look at Paul Richardson on the outside. He flashed a little bit at the end of 2016 when he was given some opportunities. along with Tyler Lockett, are they going to provide some type of balance in the passing game opposite of Doug Baldwin and a Jimmy Graham? And in particular with Richardson, can he show more of what he did at the end of 2016 throughout the course of 2017? Defensively, I will go with Sheldon Richardson. You've brought in this guy to clearly be a difference maker, to be an X factor for you, to bring you something that you haven't had on that defense. How is he going to play on this team this year? How is he going to fit? How is he going to produce? Not saying he can't, not saying he won't, but remains to be seen, because he's been playing in one type of scheme for so many years. Now he's coming to play in an entirely different type of system in a different type of role. Looking at this team's schedule, they start off the season week 1 at Green Bay. So it's an early good test against arguably the best quarterback in the National Football League, Aaron Rodgers. These teams seem to play each other pretty much every year. Then week 5 at Los Angeles against the Rams. You say, why would that be a marquee matchup for the Seahawks? Because they need to figure out a way to beat the Rams twice this year. Jeff Fisher's gone. Now it's time to take an inferior team and put them down where the hell they belong. And that game right there is one of those games, week 5 at the Rams, that the Seahawks in recent years have really tripped up on. It's a game that they can't afford to trip up on this year. Then week 11, they host Atlanta in Seattle. And that's a chance where if Atlanta gets over what happened last year in the Super Bowl, that is a talented team. I won't dispute that. Could Atlanta be in the mix by then? I personally don't think so, but a lot of people do, and they very well may be right. So that could be a measuring stick game for the Seahawks. And then week 16 at Dallas, that could be a potential situation, potentially, where you've got playoff positioning, home field advantage, first round bye on the line. Can the Seahawks go on the road and beat a quality team like the Dallas Cowboys? I look at the Seahawks team, though, and I say, the Arizona Cardinals have regressed the last 2 years, in my opinion. The Rams aren't ready. The 49ers are nowhere near ready. So for all intents and purposes, the Seahawks should kind of cakewalk through this division. And with the addition of Sheldon Richardson, you've got another year of Russell Wilson of experience under his belt. This should be one of the premier teams again in the NFC. This should be an 11 or 12 win team, wins this division by several games, and should really, in theory, if they can discover a running game and protect Russell Wilson a little better, should be a threat to go to the Super Bowl this year. They should be. But the question is, will they be? Only time is going to tell. But you feel like if it doesn't happen this year, maybe it's not going to happen for them again.